Most of us get a notice once each year that it's open enrollment season for our insurance plans. We have to make a decision during open enrollment season. Am I going to change my plan? Does my plan work well enough for me, or should I consider a different plan? Maybe I can get one with a lower copay. Or maybe I'm willing to pay a higher deductible because another plan would have some services that I'm not getting right now. In a way, Easter is like that, like an open enrollment period. Maybe another way of looking at it is like living in a kind of rural area, but one that has bus service. And the bus comes around and helps us get where we need to go, but it comes on its schedule. When the bus pulls up, the door may open and the driver may say, "Are you getting on?" And the choice is ours. We can get on or not, but we have to know that if we don't get on, we may have to wait for the next bus, and the wait may be a while. Easter's a little bit like that, too. It's kind of like what we're celebrating right now is the open enrollment period for us to stop believing in death. Is your plan for life working for you right now? Can you handle your deductibles? Or has the time come for you to get a different plan that does not rely so much on death as the thing that never changes? Are you willing to stop believing in dying? Now, when I say this, that sounds weird, because probably everybody here knows that we're going to die someday. We teach our children from an early age, "Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death." We know. But we don't believe in final death. We don't believe in final death. That's what today celebrates. Once we stop believing in final death, then we don't need to be afraid of dying. Then we don't need to be afraid of anything. Life opens up before us if we're willing to stop believing in final death. When I was young, I heard a poem that I knew I needed to memorize because it said something that I knew in my heart was true, and I knew that it was going to serve me well to have it right at my command anytime. It's from Edna St. Vincent Millay, and the poem says, "I shall die, but that is all that I will do for death." Will we die someday? Sure. But that is all we will do for death. Death, final death, is not real. It is a lie. The thing is, most of us can't just learn this lesson once. We have to keep relearning it. We can say, "I don't believe in final death," but then we have to have some way to face what happens when we are here for a funeral for someone we love who's died. What do we do if our house burns down, or our neighbor's house, or someone else we know? That happened, to a couple in our parish. They were at the 8:30 Mass one Sunday, and while they were at church praising God, their house burned down on the West End. What do you do then? Do you still believe that there's no final death if you work at a company that is downsizing? Or if you or someone you know has a marriage that's falling apart? Do we not believe in final death when we hear news from Haiti that there are armed gangs taking over neighborhoods every day? Or when we hear news that we can't even bear coming from Israel and Gaza? Do we not believe in final death when our hearts are breaking over Ukraine? See, this is how the plan works. We're covered by not believing in final death, but there is a copay. Every time something happens, there's a copay. And we have to reassert No, even now, even in light of this fire, this downsizing, this horrible news from the Middle East, even despite all of that, I know I shall die, but that is all that I will do for death. There are so many examples of people being enrolled in the plan and paying their copays. And there's a number of them going on at any given time in our parish. 3 of them come to mind because they're fresh right now. And some of the people that I'm going to talk about are here right now. The first is a man in our parish who told me in the middle of Lent that he was having the best Lent he'd ever had in his life. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I found a devotion for 40 days that's meant to dissolve grudges." And he said, "I just can't tell you how much it helps me to every day be thinking about these grudges that I've had and realize that, I don't know what's going to happen, but he goes, I just feel like it's really opening me up. I'm starting to pray for people that I've been all clenched and frustrated about for a long time." He said, it's wonderful. You should tell your parishioners about it. Then I found out just last week that he had had an incredible breakthrough. It turns out that one of the things this man was dealing with is he had a very close relationship with his stepson up until about a decade ago. And then something he did infuriated his stepson. And looking back, this parishioner would say, "Yeah, it was my bad. I messed up." He said, "But I don't know how to get through to this stepson that I love. He won't talk to me. There's no movement at all." So then, after 35 days of praying with this Lenten devotion to dissolve grudges, he saw an opening. It turns out his stepson had a situation going on that this dad could help with. And although he knew that other times when he'd been around his stepson, he wouldn't even speak to him, he canceled his plans for that Saturday, last Saturday, and went over to his house and spent the day quietly serving his stepson. And he came in the next day with tears in his eyes, and he said, "Father, it's a miracle." He said, "You know how I've been praying to dissolve grudges? Yesterday I spent the whole day with the stepson who hasn't spoken to me in over 10 years. He said it was so beautiful, and it was so real. It's not like we, hugged it out all day. But he said, "I've never tasted mercy like that before." A lot of us think that an estrangement or a relationship that's gone bad, we think that that's a tomb, that it's final death, but it's not. Relationships can die, but they can never experience final death. There is always resurrection possible in every relationship, no matter what. Another story from this past week is about Jeannie, who got married to her sweetheart Russ on this carpet just 8 days ago, last Saturday. They had a beautiful wedding, and what makes their wedding a little bit interesting is that they are people who met when they were kids at a public pool in Saratoga, when she was 6 and he was 7. What makes that extra interesting is that now they're 71 and 72. They wound up going their separate ways in high school, and each of them married. Jeannie had a big family, and then things changed for them. And about 25 years ago, they reconnected and they began a long-distance relationship, a very sweet companionship, very appropriate for people in their stage of life. It was a very sweet connection. That changed and intensified when recently Russ found out that his cancer had turned to stage 4. So Jeannie came and met with me and she said, "It's time for us to get married." And she said, "I want to do it for a lot of reasons, but for one, I want to make sure I can be with him all the way to the end. I don't want to be told in a hospital I can't be by his bedside." And she said, "I want to take his name. I'm going to change my name at age 71 so that he knows that his name will live on." She knows that this will not be a long marriage. As a matter of fact, when they were here at the wedding last week, everybody in the assembly knew that too. But it was such a joyful wedding. They know that the honeymoon that they're planning for later this year may need to be canceled. But knowing that Russ will die does not change anything. Yes, Russ will die, but that is all that he will do for death. And these people defy death by getting married during stage 4 cancer and having a joyful celebration, dancing the night away, because they know that final death is not real. That parishioner who was willing to reach out to his stepson, he was willing to pay the copay. He was willing to wait patiently. He was willing to show up on a Saturday. Jeannie and Russ, they're willing to pay the copay. Jeannie may have a very short marriage and a long widowhood. But that's what not believing in final death can do. It opens the doors. Suddenly, things we could only dream of become real to us. Christina Burdick is somebody that a lot of people know. Her son is actually serving as an altar server today. She is a very active parishioner, a woman filled with faith, a lovely young mother. So it was shocking when a couple of years ago, this active, wonderful, vibrant person showed up to church with canes and then in a wheelchair. Doctors weren't sure what was wrong. It was becoming clear that it may have been a food intolerance, but she had removed so many things, and she had stopped eating gluten years ago, but it sometimes wasn't helping. It was getting worse. Nobody could seem to help her, and it was really, really hard. It was scary for her to not know where this was going. She has young children. She has dreams and a beautiful marriage. Well, she was talking with someone about a food intolerance that they have. And as they were speaking, she heard the Holy Spirit say in her heart, "Listen to this. You're going to need to know this." She didn't know why, but she heard the nudge. Pay attention. This is going to be important. So she took a note of what the person was talking about. And then she started experimenting. She talked with her husband and said, "Do you think this could be something to do?" So they started by including more of that in her diet. And sure enough, she had the worst symptoms she'd ever had. So she started removing it from her diet. And then this happened. On the Friday before Holy Week, she was bringing her children to a park in Queensbury where they often go. And her kids got out of the car and started running, which was the plan. But Christina, who used to run with them, knew that she shouldn't leave the car. She got up and got out with her handicap placard there, but she didn't want to go too far because she knew from past experience that if she went too far and couldn't get back, what was she going to do? Who was going to get the kids home? How was she going to get out of this? But for some reason, last Friday, she felt like, I feel really good today. I think I can try walking a little more. And then she walked a little more and a little more. And then she said, I wonder if I can run. And she started running, and she ran a mile. And she came to church last weekend, and she was literally jumping up and down. And she has now registered for the Murphy Mile in Lake George next month. She is walking without any help for the first time in years. There were times that she thought she was never going to walk again. All of us can be tempted to feel that whatever we're dealing with is impossible to overcome, that it'll never get any better, it's just going to get worse. But we don't believe in final death. We know that miracles happen in relationships, in life connections, in our bodies. I think it's important on this day for us to remember that when Jesus rose from the dead, he wasn't all better, so to speak. You all know the story that he had holes in his hands and his feet. He had a mark in his side where the Roman soldier had pierced him. And he could actually allow his apostles to touch those places, but they didn't hurt him anymore. He didn't need the trauma to be undone in order to move forward in glory. He paid the copay, and we can too. His wounds were no longer grotesque, they were now luminous. So everybody here may know that there is no escaping death, not on this planet. We're all going to die someday. But once we stop fearing final death, life opens up. We can do anything. Because, yes, indeed, we shall die. But that is all that we will do for death.